If you asked anyone in college who Ethan Cole was, they'd probably squint for a moment before saying something vague like, "Oh, him, the quiet guy who always carried her books." Yeah, that guy. The one who smiled through humiliation, who held umbrellas for girls who wouldn't remember his name the next day. The one who thought kindness alone could win hearts. Back then, I thought love was something you could earn if you gave enough of yourself away. I thought she was my forever. Her name was Mia. Sunlight in her hair, poetry in her laughter, cruelty hidden behind the sweetness of her voice. I was so blind. It was a rainy Friday evening when everything fell apart. We were in a dimly lit restaurant near campus, one of those cozy, slightly overpriced places that made you feel adult just by sitting there. I'd been saving for weeks to afford that dinner. I'd planned to propose to her, not with a ring, not yet, but with a promise. A future. When I got there, she wasn't alone. Her best friend, Leela, was with her, and so was Ryan, the captain of the university's investment club. The guy who'd once borrowed my notes and never returned them. The guy she'd told me not to worry about. They didn't see me at first. I stood by the door, frozen, while their laughter floated through the warm hum of conversation. And then, she said it. "Ethan's sweet, but he's not ambitious. He'll probably end up working for someone like Ryan one day." And they laughed. Even Layla. My world tilted. It wasn't the words that hurt most. It was the casual way she said them, the way her hand rested on Ryan's arm like she'd already made her choice. I don't remember walking out. I just remember the rain washing over me like punishment. My reflection in the puddle looked like a stranger, soaked, hollow-eyed and small. That night, I packed up my things from the dorm. No dramatic farewell, no confrontation, just silence. I deleted her number, left the group chats, and disappeared. The next morning, I boarded a bus back to my hometown, a cracked industrial city where dreams went to die. My grandmother used to call it a place where ambition rusts. But for me, it became a forge. Life hit hard after that. I worked part-time in a delivery warehouse, then in a small tech repair shop. My degree in finance gathered dust while I fixed broken screens and carried boxes heavier than my self-esteem. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's quiet enough to hear yourself think. And one night, while sitting in that flickering lit shop surrounded by dead phones and half-eaten takeout, I met her. A girl in a coffee-stained hoodie came in holding a cracked tablet. She smiled shyly, said she couldn't afford a new one. I told her I'd fix it for free. Her name was Sera, a software engineering dropout with eyes full of ideas and nowhere to put them. That night we talked for hours about everything: startups, systems, the future. And when she laughed, it wasn't at me. It was with me. We started building something small together, just a tiny app to track freelance payments. Then it grew. A community formed around it. People who'd been ghosted by clients, scammed, overlooked, they found fairness through our platform. And one by one we found allies. People like Zane, a burned-out banker who'd lost everything in a market crash. Lena, a designer whose ex-boss stole her work. Gyro, a coder fired for being too idealistic. We weren't friends at first. We were survivors, but slowly we became something more. 2 years later, Ethalink Inc. was born. We built it from scratch: blood, sleep, and relentless faith. It started in my grandmother's attic. It grew into an empire. And Mia, I didn't think about her much anymore. Until one evening, at a high-profile tech expo, I saw her again. She was standing beside Ryan, who now looked worn, forced smile, expensive suit, hollow eyes. Their company's stock had just crashed. She turned, saw me, froze. I was on the panel stage under bright lights. The name Ethan Cole, CEO, Ethalink, gleamed on the screen behind me. For a heartbeat, the past and present collided: the rain, the laughter, the humiliation. And then I smiled. Not out of revenge, not even satisfaction. Just peace. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's resurrection. If pain is a teacher, then failure is the graduation. After that night, the rain, the laughter, the leaving, I thought I'd buried the old Ethan for good. But ghosts have a way of sneaking back, especially when the spotlight finds you. The world doesn't prepare you for success after humiliation. No one tells you how strange it feels when the people who ignored you start remembering your name. I woke up that morning to sunlight spilling through the penthouse window. It painted the city in gold and glass, the way only a skyline can when it's pretending to forgive you for surviving. Sera was sitting on the couch, laptop open, hair a mess of focus and caffeine. We'd been working 3 days straight, launch prep for Ethalink's new expansion. "Morning, boss," she said with a half-smile, eyes still on her screen. "Morning, co-founder," I replied, stretching. She rolled her eyes. "Don't remind me. The investors are already asking for numbers we don't have yet." That was Sera, fire and calm wrapped into one. She didn't talk about her past much, but sometimes, late at night, I'd catch the quiet sadness in her expression. The kind of look you get from being underestimated too many times. Maybe that's why we understood each other without words. We'd both been broken by people who thought they were smarter. By noon, the team had gathered in our glass-walled office overlooking the city. Zane, ever the perfectionist banker, was packing with a coffee cup, mumbling about cash flow. Lena, our designer, sketched new UI ideas on her tablet while humming an old tune. Gyro had his headphones on, lost in code, only surfacing to drop one-liners that somehow solved 3 problems at once. If someone had told me 3 years ago that I'd lead a team like this, I would have laughed. But now, watching them work, hearing the low hum of ambition filling the room, it felt right. We weren't just a startup, we were a rebellion. That afternoon, I had a meeting with an investor. Not just any investor. Ryan's father. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who once dismissed me as a kid with no direction was now requesting a partnership. The meeting was held in a sleek conference room overlooking the city, marble floors, chilled air, the smell of old money. "Ethan," Mr. Harlan said with a forced smile, "I've heard a lot about your company. Impressive growth for such a young team." "Thank you," I replied, polite but distant. "We've been fortunate with the right people." He leaned back, studying me. "You've built something solid. I'd like to invest, merge Ethalink with Harlan Digital. We can make this a billion-dollar brand." Behind his voice, I could almost hear Ryan smirk. I remembered every word, every laugh, every time I'd been told I wasn't enough. And for a moment I wanted to say yes, just to prove I could. But then I remembered the rain. And Sera's tired eyes after another sleepless night of coding. And the team that had believed in me when no one else did. I smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Harlan, but I think we'll build our billion on our own." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. When I stepped out, the sky had shifted to amber. The city shimmered, alive and indifferent. Sera was waiting by the car, phone in hand. "How'd it go?" "We're not merging," I said simply. She grinned. "Good, I like building things that belong to us." For a moment we just stood there, watching the sun set behind the skyline. And I realized something. Success isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your story. But as we drove away, I noticed a familiar name trending on social media. Mia Langford. Her company, Ryan's company, had just filed for bankruptcy. A picture of them flashed across the feed, polished smiles cracking under the weight of failure. The universe has a cruel sense of poetry. That night I couldn't sleep. I stood on the balcony, the city whispering below, and thought about her. Not with anger, not even satisfaction. Just a quiet, bittersweet ache. Because once she was everything, and now she was a chapter I'd outgrown. Sera stepped out, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She handed me one without a word. "You ever think about the past?" I asked. "Only when it tries to text me," she said with a small laugh. I smiled. "You ever answer?" "Never." We stood there, side by side, 2 scarred dreamers wrapped in the glow of everything we'd built. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. You don't need revenge to win. You just need to rise so high that the past can't reach you anymore. Success has a strange way of testing you. Not when you're starving, but when you finally have enough to eat. When Etherlink hit its first 1,000,000 users, we thought we'd made it. Investors called us visionaries. Tech magazines called us the quiet revolution. But behind the press releases and smiling photos, cracks began to show, fine hairline fractures in the foundation we'd built on late nights, cheap noodles, and unspoken dreams. The first sign was Zane. He'd been the backbone of our finances since day one, the guy who could turn chaos into clean spreadsheets and sleepless nights into strategy. But now, his eyes were distant, his desk buried in paperwork that seemed to multiply. "You okay?" I asked one morning. He looked up, forcing a smile. "Just numbers, Ethan, they don't bite." But I could see the exhaustion behind his voice, the kind that doesn't come from work but from fear, the fear of failing again. "Take a break," I said. He shook his head. "If I stop moving, I'll think too much." Then there was Lena, our creative heart. She'd been designing nonstop for weeks, chasing a perfect interface that didn't exist. One afternoon, I found her staring at a blank screen, stylus trembling in her hand. "I can't make it feel right anymore," she whispered. I wanted to tell her it was fine, that perfection was overrated. But her eyes, glassy, tired, desperate, told me this wasn't about pixels. It was about pressure, the invisible kind that builds behind every success story. And then Sera. She was the spark that lit all of this, but lately her laughter had gone quiet. She started staying late, coding alone in the dark. Sometimes I'd walk in and find her just staring at the screen, her reflection in the glass looking lost. "You're doing too much," I told her one night. "We all are," she replied without looking up. "Sera." She sighed. "We built this to prove we could rise, but now I'm scared it'll be the thing that burns us down." I didn't have an answer because she was right. 2 weeks later it happened. Our servers crashed during a major update. User data vanished. Investors panicked. In one night, everything we'd built started to crumble. I remember standing in the war room, screens flashing red alerts, the air thick with caffeine and fear. Gyro was typing furiously, lines of code flying across the monitor. Zane was on the phone, trying to calm a furious board member. Lena sat in the corner, tears streaking down her face, whispering, "We're going to lose everything." And Sera, she was silent, eyes fixed on the failing system she'd spent years building. Then suddenly she said, "Shut it all down." Everyone froze. "What?" I asked. She looked up at me, steady now, her voice calm but sharp. "We can't fix it while it's bleeding. Shut it down, all of it. We start clean." It was madness, risking everything to rebuild from scratch. But something in her eyes told me to trust her. So I did. The next 48 hours were a blur. No sleep, no food, just code, coffee, and quiet desperation. We worked like ghosts, Sera and I side by side, shoulders brushing as we rebuilt piece by piece. At some point, the sun began to rise, painting our tired faces in gold. "Almost there," she whispered, fingers trembling over the keyboard. When the final line of code executed and the system rebooted, a quiet notification blinked to life. "Etherlink online." No cheer erupted, no applause. Just silence, the good kind, the kind that means you've survived. Later, when everyone had gone home to collapse into sleep, I stayed behind. The office was dark except for the hum of servers, steady now, alive again. Sera walked over, barefoot, hair tied up in a messy knot. "We did it," she said softly. I nodded. "You saved it." She smiled faintly. "We did." A long silence hung between us, heavy and gentle all at once. I looked at her, really looked. At the girl who'd believed in me when I was nothing, who'd rebuilt an empire from ashes beside me. "Sera," I said quietly, "what are we doing this for?" She looked out at the city lights, her eyes reflecting them like a constellation. "For the ones who were told they couldn't," she said, "and maybe for ourselves." I smiled. "That's enough." And for the first time in years, it was. But just when we thought the storm had passed, a new shadow appeared. A lawsuit, filed by none other than Ryan Harlan. He was back. And this time, he wanted to burn everything we'd built. I once heard that ghosts don't always haunt places. Sometimes they haunt names. And Ryan Harlan's name carried the kind of chill that could silence a room. For months, we'd built in peace. Our company was alive again, stronger than before, our scars turned into quiet medals no one could see. But the morning that envelope arrived, thick ivory, embossed with his family crest, something old and ugly stirred inside me. A ghost I thought I'd buried in the rain. The lawsuit. It was absurd at first glance. A claim that Ether Link had used proprietary algorithms stolen from Harlan Digital. The irony was almost comical. Ryan hadn't written a single line of code in his life. But in the world of money and pride, facts didn't matter as much as noise. Sera dropped the papers on my desk. "He's trying to choke us," she said. "If this gets public, even if we win, we bleed investors." Zane swore softly. Lena looked pale. Even Gyro, the unshakable, had gone quiet. I stared at Ryan's name printed across the top of the page, bold, confident, arrogant. I could almost hear his voice again. "You'll end up working for someone like me one day." I took a deep breath. "No," I said finally, "not this time." The confrontation. The first time I saw him again was at a press conference downtown. He was dressed like he always was, tailored suit, gold cufflinks, smile sharp enough to cut glass. Beside him, Mia. Same honey-colored hair, same perfect posture, but there was something hollow behind her eyes now. When Ryan noticed me, his smile widened, all teeth, no warmth. "Ethan Cole," he said, stepping forward. "Didn't think I'd see you here, old friend." I met his gaze, calm. "We were never friends." He chuckled, the sound rehearsed. "You've done well for yourself, though I have to say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery." Behind the cameras, Sera shifted. I could feel her anger like static in the air, but I kept my voice steady. "Funny," I said. "I could say the same about you, only you imitated my failure. You're just doing it with better suits." For a split second, something flickered in his expression, something raw and defensive. Then he smiled again. "We'll see who still has a company by the end of the quarter." That night, I stood by the office window long after everyone had gone home. The city lights flickered like restless thoughts. I wasn't angry, not anymore. Anger was what he wanted, proof that he still mattered. Sera joined me, silent. She didn't need to ask what I was thinking. "He's not doing this for money," I said quietly. "He's doing it for revenge. He can't stand the idea that I built something without him, without them." She nodded. "Then let's win by existing." I smiled faintly. "You always make it sound simple." "It is," she said softly, "just not easy." The strategy. For the next 2 weeks, we fought back, not with rage but with patience. Zane dug through the financials and found the weak link in Ryan's claim. Lena designed a campaign that turned the lawsuit into a story of resilience. Gyro coded night after night, building an open-source transparency tool that exposed our entire system, proof we had nothing to hide. And Sera. She was the heartbeat through it all. Tired, sleepless, fierce. Every time I saw her across the room, hair tied up, coffee in hand, eyes burning with purpose, I remembered the boy I used to be. The one who would have folded under pressure, apologized for existing. That version of me was gone. When the court ruling finally came, it was a gray morning. The kind that feels like a pause in time. We stood outside the courthouse, reporters crowding, cameras flashing. Ryan and Mia arrived first, polished, perfect, pretending. Then the verdict was read. Case dismissed. All claims against Ethan Link withdrawn with prejudice. Just like that, the ghost lost its shape. Ryan's smile faltered for the first time in public. Mia looked down. And I just breathed. Afterward, as the crowd thinned and the sky began to lighten, Sera turned to me. Feels anticlimactic, doesn't it? She said quietly. I laughed softly. Yeah, maybe because peace doesn't photograph well. She smiled. Or because the real victories happen inside us, not in headlines. I looked at her then, really looked, and realized something that had been growing quietly between the lines of our lives. This wasn't just about rebuilding. It was about rediscovering what love looks like when it's made of trust, not fantasy. And as we walked away from the courthouse, side by side under the soft winter light, I finally felt the rain from that long-ago night wash off me for good. But peace never lasts forever. A new name was waiting in my inbox that night, an anonymous message with a single line. You think Ryan was your biggest enemy, he was just the first. The past had one more ghost left to reveal. The message came at midnight. One line, no name, no signature. You think Ryan was your biggest enemy, he was just the first. It should have scared me. But instead it felt inevitable. Success doesn't erase the past, it just changes the lighting. And sometimes the shadows it casts are even darker. I didn't tell the team right away. Part of me didn't want to drag them into another storm. The other part, the old Ethan, the boy who'd once been humiliated under restaurant lights, wanted to face this one alone. But Sera knew something was wrong. She always did. She found me in the office at 3 a.m., standing by the window with my phone still glowing in my hand. Talk, she said simply. I handed her the message. She read it once, then again, jaw tightening. Could be a bluff, she murmured. Or a warning. She met my eyes, then we treated like both. The next morning, we ran a full system audit. No breaches, no leaks, everything looked clean on the surface. But then Gyro found it. A buried line of code in one of our old server updates, something that shouldn't have been there. A ghost function, hidden under false encryption, quietly transmitting data to an unknown IP address. Whoever did this knew our architecture, Gyro said, voice low. Knew us. Lena went pale. Could it be Ryan again? Zane shook his head. He doesn't have the brains for this. Someone else planted it, maybe months ago. Sera turned to me, who had access to the early prototypes. I didn't have to think. My stomach dropped. Mia. Back in the early days, when Ethan Link was just an idea, Mia had visited once back when I was still foolish enough to think closure meant conversation. She'd come by under the pretense of wanting to understand, to see how I was doing. I'd shown her around, even let her glimpse some of our early systems. I thought she was just curious. But maybe she'd come to plant a seed that would grow into this. That realization hit like ice. I wanted to be angry, but mostly I felt tired. Tired of being haunted by ghosts that refused to die. That evening, I went for a walk alone. The city was restless, rain-slick streets reflecting neon lights, taxi engines humming like distant memories. Every face I passed felt like a question I couldn't answer. What do you do when you've already won the war, but the ashes still burn beneath your feet? Sera found me again later, on the rooftop of our building. She stood beside me, no words at first, just the hum of wind between us. "You're thinking about her," she said softly. "I'm thinking about everything," I admitted, "how fragile all this really is." She looked at me, not pitying, just seeing. Maybe fragility isn't weakness. Maybe it's what keeps us honest. Her words sank deep. I turned to her. "You're not scared?" "Of losing it," she smiled faintly. "Of course I am, but fear means we still care." We stood there for a long moment, rain gathering in the folds of our sleeves, city lights flickering below us like quiet applause for the living. Then she said, "Let's rebuild again, not out of fear but out of choice." And just like that, the fire in my chest, the one I thought had burned out, flickered alive again. The rebuild. Over the next few weeks, we tore through our own systems line by line, rewriting, purging, reforging. Zane managed finances like a general on the front lines. Lena redesigned our entire visual framework. Gyro coded through nights like he was possessed. And Sera, she was everywhere, focused, unshakable. We weren't just fixing a breach. We were rewriting who we were. By the time the new version launched, Ether Link 2, it wasn't just a product. It was a statement. We refused to be afraid. When the first 1,000 users logged in again, the dashboard lit up with a single line of our new company motto. One Sera had written quietly in the corner of the design file. "We rise not because we're unbroken, but because we choose to rebuild." I didn't realize I was crying until she reached over and wiped the tears with her thumb. "Hey," she said softly, teasing a smile. "You're allowed to be proud, you know." I laughed. I'm not sure if this is pride or relief. Maybe both. And in that moment, amid the hum of servers, the scent of coffee and code, the warm flicker of screens in the dark, I felt it again. That peace I've been chasing since the night she laughed. The kind of peace that doesn't come from revenge, but from becoming someone who no longer needs it. But as the notifications kept pouring in, one caught my eye. A single email from an unknown sender. Subject line, "We need to talk about Sera." Attached a photo. Grainy, low light, time-stamped months before I'd even met her. She was standing beside a man I didn't recognize, shaking hands under the logo of Harlan Digital. My blood went cold. There are moments in life when time doesn't move forward. It pauses. Right between a heartbeat and the next, when everything you thought you knew starts to come undone. That's what it felt like, staring at that photograph. Sera, smiling faintly, standing beside a man with the Harlan Digital logo behind them. The timestamp was from before we'd met, before Ether Link. Before everything. For the first time in years, I felt that old chill. The one that crawls up from your stomach to your throat when betrayal whispers your name. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, the photo open on my laptop, the city outside breathing in slow blue pulses. 100 thoughts collided in my head, none of them kind. Had she planted that code? Had everything, her arrival, our alliance, even our closeness, been part of some long game? But then just as quickly, another voice rose inside me, quieter, steadier. No, that wasn't her. Not the woman who'd built this with me brick by trembling brick. Not the woman who'd stayed up for nights, rewriting the system by my side. Still, I needed the truth. She found me the next morning. Her eyes were tired, not from guilt, but from too many nights fighting invisible wars. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. "No," I replied. She looked at me for a moment, reading the silence. Then quietly, "What happened?" I turned the screen toward her. The photo glowed between us. For a long time, she said nothing. Just breathed. Then I was wondering when that would come back. Her voice didn't break, but something in it trembled. She sat down, hands folded, as if confessing to something sacred. After I dropped out of university, she began, I worked freelance for a dozen companies, anyone who'd pay. I was broke, desperate, invisible. One of them was Harlan Digital. She looked up at me then. I was just a contractor. They never told me what my code was used for. I didn't even know it was part of their algorithm until years later. I studied her face, searching for cracks, for lies. But all I saw was exhaustion. And truth. I didn't know you back then, Ethan, she said. But if I had, I would have walked away. Silence stretched between us, heavy and fragile. Finally I asked, why didn't you tell me? Her eyes flickered. Because I wanted to be someone new when I met you, not a mistake from their past, not another broken piece from that world. I turned away, staring out the window. The city below was glowing with that morning gold that makes everything look almost forgiving. You could have destroyed everything, I said quietly. I know, she whispered, and I would have deserved it. I looked back at her then. She wasn't crying, but her voice carried a kind of apology tears could never express. I didn't build Ether-Link to escape them, she said. I built it because I needed to believe that good things could come from bad beginnings. Something inside me loosened. All these years I've been chasing revenge, chasing redemption, chasing meaning. Maybe I'd been running from the simple truth. Everyone I'd met, even me, was just trying to rewrite their story. I reached out gently and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling. Then let's stop running, I said. No more ghosts, no more past, just what's next. Her breath hitched, a soft, quiet exhale before she nodded. Together. Always. Months later. The lawsuit faded from headlines. Ether-Link grew quietly, steadily. Not a meteoric rise this time, but a lasting climb. We built slowly, deliberately. Not chasing vengeance, not chasing validation, just building. Mia and Ryan disappeared into the noise of forgotten scandals. Sometimes I'd see their names in passing articles, old empires crumbling under new ones. I never felt triumph, only distance. Like watching a storm from the safety of a warm room. One evening, Sera and I walked through the old neighborhood where it all began. The rain had just stopped. The world smelled of earth and renewal. We passed the little tech shop where I used to work, now closed, dust-covered. I laughed quietly. You know, I fixed phones here once. She smiled. You fix bigger things now. I looked at her, the streetlights painting her in gold. We both do. She reached for my hand, and for the first time in a long time I realized this was peace. Not the kind you fight for, but the kind you earn by finally forgiving yourself. In the distance, thunder rumbled soft, harmless, almost like applause. And for the first time since the night she laughed, I didn't look back. Because the boy who once waited in the rain for someone to love him was gone. In his place stood a man who'd learned that love, real love, isn't what saves you. It's what walks beside you once you've saved yourself. Epilogue: we rebuilt. Ether-Link wasn't an empire built from revenge. It was a monument to rebirth. And every scar we carried became part of its blueprint. Maybe that's what being human really is. Not staying unbroken, but finding beauty in the cracks.